The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the empty courtroom where I had spent most of my professional life. It was odd, really, sitting there, wearing the weight of my memories like a well-worn overcoat. After 3 decades of advocating for the accused, my retirement felt like a hollow victory. The disruption of my routine started with an unexpected letter, an elegantly scrawled note that stopped me in my tracks. She wrote it by hand, as if to bridge the years since I last saw her, years I filled with clients and cases and courtroom battles that left me hollow, yet I gladly embraced. The letter came from Claire, the woman I once defended and quietly loved. Now a widowed professor teaching in a state too far away, she wrote about what I could only imagine, her new life, her grief, her lessons learned. But more than that, she wrote about me, how my presence had lingered like a light through a dark tunnel at a time she needed it most. I sat at my kitchen table, an ugly green thing that really ought to have been replaced long ago, feeling the familiar pang of old desires mingled with the dull ache of remorse. My marriages crumbled under the weight of my devotion to duty. My clients? Many had walked free, but far too many had been left to rot in the system I once believed in. I felt like someone slowly eroding under the light of years of moral compromise. The letter made me wonder, could there be a second chance to forge a real connection? To confront the ghosts of the past? Yet there was that niggling terror. What would I find in Claire's eyes? Would they shimmer with frustration or disappointment, or could I dare hope for warmth? The air was thick with possibility, and I was suffocating on it. As thoughts collided in a kaleidoscope of memories, I made a decision. I would visit her, unannounced. I would drive through these faded towns that had become mere shadows in my memory, all for a woman I let slip away, a choice I had made long ago, a sacrifice for an ideal that had warped over the years. The car hummed along the highway, an old but reliable machine that felt like an extension of my being. The road stretched endlessly before me, dotted with fields that whispered stories of lives lived and lost. With each passing mile, I left behind pieces of my past, each one a testament to why I avoided intimacy, closeness, anything that could potentially shatter my carefully constructed defenses. During the drive, I couldn't help but replay old cases in my mind. People whose lives I tried to piece back together with flimsy law books and failed certainties. I thought about Claire. She had once been my brightest light during a dark time. I remembered the way she spoke about justice, not just as a concept, but something tangible we could touch, something we could all share. Our mutual passion had drawn me in, but I committed the ultimate sin of my profession. I protected her from truth while grieving my own desire for her. As the miles ticked by, the past haunted the corners of my mind, but there was beauty in the fact that this journey was also a reckoning. I was ready to confront not just my feelings for Claire, but the life that I had built alone. Would she receive me with open arms or turn away in sorrow? Each possibility weighed on me like lead. When I finally arrived at her university, there was an urgency to my movements, a realization that any moment could lead to redemption or regret. As I walked through the campus, the familiar flutter of anxiety ignited within me. Seasonal blooms were swaying in the breeze, a sharp contrast to the churning chaos in my heart. I took a breath and pushed the door open to her office. The room was cluttered with books and papers, like echoes of the busy life she had built. She looked up with surprise, and for a brief instant, all my doubts faded. The first words out of my mouth felt clumsy and foreign. A man stripped of his defenses confronting the vulnerability of connection after so many years. "Claire, it's me. I'm here." Her expression shifted from surprise to recognition, then something warmer, a flicker of the spark we used to share. We talked. The air between us was tangled with an amalgam of longing and guilt, a tenuous dance of silence punctuated by laughter and stories. I learned of her late husband, a man of kindness, but one who didn't know her like I had. For the first time, I saw Claire not just as a former client or a quiet love lost, but a complicated human being marked by the waves of life that had weathered her spirit. With each shared memory, I felt myself opening, revealing the fractured pieces of my own life. I spoke of my failed marriages, not to find an excuse, but to show her the man I had become. The lawyer who fought for justice, but often left parts of himself behind on the courtroom floor. The man who learned to build walls instead of bridges. She listened, tears gleaming in her eyes, torn between understanding and sorrow. There was a reluctance that hovered like a specter. Could we be honest with each other when life had weathered us both? Each unveiling felt like a tightrope walk where desire and guilt sparkled side by side, waiting for us to lose our balance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we shared a moment of honesty. A fragile beginning when most of life felt like an ending. Could we dare to build something new from the shards of the past? In that small, cluttered office overflowing with the echoes of lesson plans and memories, we both understood that redemption wouldn't be owed. It would be earned through brave vulnerability, a connection striving to rise against the weight of years. And for the first time in a long while, I felt the rising tide of hope. Days rolled into weeks as I, Ben, settled into a rhythm I hadn't expected. My visits to Claire became a sanctuary from the burdens I carried, a place where the haunting shadows of my career softened under the warmth of her laughter and compassion. Still, within that newfound connection, the specters of the past lingered like ghosts refusing to be exorcised, each memory demanding acknowledgement. With every meeting, we peeled back the layers of our respective histories. Claire shared painful memories of her late husband, stories marked by the intense love they had shared yet tinged with the agony of loss. I reveled in the warmth of her words, but felt guilt gnawing at my insides. It was difficult to exist in a space where love blossomed yet was marred by the ghosts of our former lives. One afternoon, during a quiet stroll on campus, I turned the conversation toward my career. "Do you ever think about the scale of justice?" I asked, my voice tinged with bitterness. "How much did we bend it to serve our ends? Sometimes it felt like a game where the only real cost was to those we served." The wind tousled her hair as she considered my question. "I think justice is a tapestry, Ben. Sometimes the threads mat up, sometimes they fray. But we have to believe in the artistry, don't we?" Her perspective settled on me, a conflicting blend of admiration and confusion. I had dedicated my life to that tapestry, yet I had watched too many threads unravel. "But what happens to the fabric when we lose our faith in the artistry?" Claire paused, and in that silence, I felt the weight of my past decisions pressing down upon us. Our doubts and vulnerabilities became palpable, a delicate tension hanging between us. It was a reminder of how the desire to forge something new could be both exhilarating and terrifying, like standing at the ledge of a great abyss. It was inevitable, the moment when our emotional chess game reached a critical juncture. I found myself drawn so deeply to Claire that the scars of my past threatened to overwhelm me. I could see the desire flickering in her eyes, yet my fear of losing her drowned me in uncertainties from every corner of my mind. One cold evening, the air rich with hints of impending snow, Claire invited me to a small gathering of friends she had met since moving to this place. I hesitated, wary of the attention and judgment I would likely face, but somehow I agreed. It was time to step out of the shadows. As the night unfolded in laughter and warmth, I felt a mix of elation and fear. Watching Claire engage with her friends illuminated how far she traveled from our previous lives. She thrived in this realm, intellectual and vibrant. And yet, amidst her glimmering interactions, an unfamiliar sense of loneliness crept into my heart. I wanted to protect her again, but protect her from what? The ghosts of my own failures? Then, in a moment that felt both magical and surreal, we found ourselves alone on the balcony. The stars spread out above us like a silken tapestry waiting for us to weave our own patterns into it. Do you think we could ever let the past be just that, the past? Claire asked softly, her breath forming tiny clouds in the air. I don't know, I replied, the honesty cutting through the chill like a knife. It's hard to separate where we came from who we are now. But I'd like to try if you let me. There was a long pause, the universe holding its breath, waiting. Then, her hand slipped into mine, warmth spreading through me like sunbeams breaking through a stormy sky. There was a shared sigh in the connection, as if we both understood the gravity of this small gesture. Yet even as we clung to that fragile moment, reality crashed into our serene bubble. As the night deepened, the laughter from the party echoed out to find us. Shadows of judgment, voices of estrangement from lives lived in parallel, could not help but call out. And in that instant, I felt the walls of my heart begin to crumble, revealing the raw soul within. A soul exposed and unguarded, standing at the precipice of love and fear. With the dawn of a new day, the world, so vivid, so fully alive, seemed to tease out the fears I had once buried so deeply. The warmth of Claire's hand on mine lingered like an intimate secret I dared not let go. I had taken a step toward vulnerability, but what awaited me on the other side was an uncharted territory filled with both hope and dread. As we continued our ritual of deep conversations and vulnerability, Claire began to gently unravel the facade I had built my life around. Why did you isolate yourself for so long? She asked, her eyes unwavering. You had a chance at happiness, Ben. Her questions, laced with concern instead of accusation, cut through the remnants of my defenses. I thought I was saving the world, and in doing so, I lost myself, I confessed. I was so blinded by the notion of justice that I lost sight of humanity. When the gavel fell, all I could see were the lives in ruin, but I never considered that my own life was in disarray. With each revelation came the soft promise of redemption. We were two people, weathered by our lives, seeking to build a bridge across our mended hearts. Claire showed me how forgiving oneself was not weakness, but a kind of quiet strength, an acceptance that we could grow anew, even amidst our scars. On one of those brilliant spring mornings, as laughter spilled out of our souls, we decided to take a road trip, a pilgrimage of sorts through those towns I'd once fled. Together, we would confront the haunting memories, not to dwell upon them, but to honor them as part of our journey. As we drove, the sun poured into the car, illuminating the landscape, illuminating us. In the midst of the cracked sidewalks and faded storefronts, I felt alive again, unearthing lost passions and unthinking joys. It became clear that I didn't need saving, nor did Claire. What we needed was a willingness to forge forward. And so, in the spring air, with Claire beside me and the road stretching ahead, I felt the promise of a hopeful future unfurling before us, an invitation to write a new story stitched together by the threads of honesty and fragile love. The ghosts might still linger, but the call of redemption, of honest connection, drowned their echoes when shared. If we dared enough to take each day, step by step, maybe we could reshape our narratives into something beautiful, fragile, and profoundly real. Together. The further we drove, the more my heart entwined with memories both bright and dark. Claire's laugh played like music in the background, but my mind flitted between shadows of guilt and laughter that pierced through. Each town we passed ignited recollections. There was the diner where I lost a case that still haunted me, and the park bench where I once shared an unguarded moment with a distraught client. I felt like I was being pulled back into a spiral of emotions I had tried so hard to forget. But then, there was Claire's hand resting on my knee, a simple comfort that became my anchor in the storm. I turned to her, longing to share the kaleidoscope of feelings swirling inside me. These places, they carry more than memories, they carry regret, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Regret? She echoed thoughtfully. It's a heavy burden, isn't it? We have to decide for ourselves what to do with it. In that moment, I realized how far we had traveled from our previous selves, worn down by loss and regret, yet somehow lighter, still searching for renewal. As we meandered through the tangled memories of my past, we began to etch new ones together. Laughing in the little diner that had once symbolized my guilt, I experienced a glimpse of forgiveness. But life is not always forgiving. The following week, as the air turned crisp and the first leaves fell, remnants from my life came knocking at my door. An old acquaintance from the legal world reached out, wanting to reconnect, to meet. Suddenly, the shadows grew louder. I dismissed the call, yet a knot twisted in my stomach. I had deliberately sought solace in the dictionary of my past, but now it felt as if someone was digging up the very roots I had been trying to strengthen. I found myself standing in front of Claire, my chest tight as I recounted who had reached out to me. "It's just someone from my past wanting to catch up," I said dismissively, though it felt far more ominous. Claire's expression shifted, becoming serious. "Ben, this isn't merely about what they want from you. It's about what it might mean for us. You have to confront the things you've buried, not run from them." Her words struck me like a tangible weight, and we both understood the tangled tapestry of our shared journeys. I smiled sadly, realizing that while I yearned for closure, confronting my past carried the risk of losing my present. But could I afford to let the wind of my history disrupt this fragile bond? Tempted by fear, I was drawn into a split second of choice. The common temptation was to unplug entirely, but Claire stood resolute beside me, urging me to face this encounter as a testament to the growth we had achieved together. With Claire beside me, I agreed to meet with my past, that old acquaintance who represented the life I had sought to escape. We met in a bustling coffee shop, the sounds of espresso machines and hushed conversations surrounding us as I steeled myself to listen. Jack, my former associate, wore the familiar veneer of years spent grappling with legal complexities and moral ambiguity. After the usual pleasantries, Jack dove in. "Ben, life has a way of throwing punches, and I have to say, I've watched you pull away. You need to come back in a way. There's work to be done." As I listened to his words, I envisioned Claire's unwavering support. Thoughts raced through my mind. Would I betray our connection if I returned to that world? Or was it possible to embrace my past without losing the love blossoming before me? That lingering tension gripped my heart, urging me toward vulnerability. "The work is still important, but I'm learning that connection matters too. I won't sacrifice the people in my life for a court case or a notion that justice is all there is," I said, my voice steady. Leaving the past in that coffee shop didn't feel like leaving something behind. It felt like taking important steps toward mending what had long been fractured. I turned to face the brightness of the door as it swung open, letting in the autumn air, a renewal like no other. The fear of vulnerability diminished, and I left that space feeling lighter, more whole. I returned to Claire, whose presence grounded me. Together, we ventured into the season of change, both of us willing to weave new threads into the expansive tapestry of our lives. And so, with our hearts in the right direction, we dared to meet the uncertainties of tomorrow, letting the flaws of our past mingle with the soft glow of our shared future. It was not just about redemption. It was about accepting the beauty and imperfection of love growing out of a shared history marked by both scars and tenderness. As Ben and Claire, we were ready to forge forward, hand in hand, weaving threads of hope into a new, vibrant beginning. Winter settled in, draping the world in a crisp blanket of white, while Claire and I found warmth in our burgeoning relationship. The holiday season drew near, an inevitable passage through which the past mingled with hope. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of belonging, something I had almost forgotten existed. One evening, as we prepared for dinner, Claire revealed she had received a letter from her late husband's family inviting her to a gathering over the holidays. A part of me felt a dark knot of fear tighten within. I didn't want to lose her to her past, even if I understood the pull of family loyalty and connection. "What will you do?" I asked, trying to mask the quiver in my voice. She waved a hand dismissively, but her brows knitted with concern. "I'm going, Ben. They were good to me during those final days. It's part of my healing to honor that bond." I nodded, but uncertainty lingered like an unwelcome guest. Could she truly draw from the past and still move forward with me in the present? The gathering day arrived, and I stood by the door, summoning courage. "Maybe we could go together," I suggested, hopeful yet terrified at the prospect. Claire studied me for a moment that felt like an eternity before sighing softly. "I appreciate the gesture, Ben, but I think it's something I need to do alone." I swallowed my disappointment, the tightening in my chest more pronounced. "I get that, but just know I'm here whenever life gets difficult again." With a faint smile, she agreed. I watched her leave, feeling the void grow in the space she occupied, a sensation unfamiliar and heavy with potential loss. I filled the time with old cases that surfaced in my mind, the clients forever linked to my failures, against the backdrop of laughter that had become my solace. My longing for Claire intensified, stirring fears that somehow I would awaken to an empty apartment again. Days turned into one elongated night as I battled emptiness, consumed by both fear and a strange resolve. On the evening of Claire's gathering, I sat alone, drowning in my thoughts. Memories of late nights spent pacing courtrooms, preparing for battles fought for lives haunted me. Suddenly, a thought struck like lightning. What if this reunion with her past tethered Claire away from me? Was I foolish to think our connection could withstand these haunting echoes? Fingers trembling, I picked up my phone, hesitating before dialing Claire's number. The phone rang once, twice, and just as the third chime echoed into the void, her message clicked in. "I can't speak right now. Leave a message." The silence that followed was deafening. Though it took all of my remaining courage, I left a message, fumbling through words that felt inadequate. "Claire, I just want you to know that whatever happens tonight, I believe in you. I believe in us." The shadow of fear lingered over me until the night wore on. Each minute echoed the fear of loss. When the clock struck midnight, I glanced toward the window. Snow fell gently outside, each flake a whispering question, that desperate question of worth, of whether I matched Claire's brilliance, her warmth. Then the door creaked open, and in walked Claire, her cheeks flushed, eyes bright yet clouded with an emotion I couldn't decipher. "Ben," she breathed, clearly startled to find me waiting. I rushed to her, enveloping her in a hug, drinking in the warmth of her presence. Her laugh danced in the air, but I felt hesitation linger like an echo. "How was it?" I prompted, concern coloring my voice. "It was healing," she said, her tone softening. "But it made me miss you more than I thought possible." That realization struck me like a revelation. The past would always be a part of Claire, as it was for me too, but our connection thrived on what we chose to build now, together. With newfound understanding, we quietly wrapped ourselves in the warmth of that room, the world outside reduced to a tapestry of white. There was a gentleness to the moment, one that invited dreams while acknowledging our histories. "Ben," she began, leaning back to search my eyes, "what we are building is a new home. I want you here in this life, in all the moments we create. I need you to know that I'm ready to keep forging ahead together." The words settled over me like snowfall, light yet transformative. I reached to cup her face in my hands, our foreheads touching. "And I'm ready to stand beside you. Let's take it one day at a time, share our stories, and rewrite the ones that haunt us." And slowly, we ventured beyond the past. With each tiny step, shared laughter, unspoken support, the soft brushing of fingers, we wove new threads into our lives. Together, we would navigate each day with greater strength, apart yet firmly connected. No longer would our lives be shrouded in regret. We were ready to write a future where the weight of ghosts lessened under the light of our shared truth. As snow fell softly over our reborn lives, we opened a new chapter, one filled with the fragile beauty that comes from choosing connection over solitude, love over fear, and authenticity over all else. Together, we were weaving a story of redemption, free from the shadows that once loomed large, drenched in the promise of hope. As the days turned into weeks, the winter snow began to melt, giving way to the soft blush of budding spring. Claire and I found ourselves nestled into a comfortable routine, our evenings filled with conversations that danced between hope and trepidation. My fears about the future lingered in the background, more like ghosts that would occasionally cloud our laughter than looming specters seeking to drag us back. One Saturday afternoon, we decided to visit a local farmer's market, an adventure that provided an escape from the quiet sanctuary of home. The air thrummed with life, scents of fresh produce mingling with the sweet sounds of families enjoying the warm weather. As we strolled through the stalls, I basked in the glow of Claire's laughter, her delight threading through the air. Then, as if guided by fate, we stumbled across an old friend of mine, Laura, a fellow attorney who had once walked beside me in the trenches of the courtroom. We exchanged pleasantries, but I could feel the iridescent tension rising, threatening to mar our cheerful outing. Laura's gaze flicked between Claire and me with curiosity tinged in her expression. "Ben, it's lovely to see you," Laura said, her smile slightly guarded. "Still playing the noble protector, I see." The remark cut deeper than I anticipated. I offered a tight smile while I braced myself against the sudden swell of discomfort between us. Claire, observing the change in my demeanor, squeezed my hand gently, grounding me. "Laura, this is Claire. She's a professor here," I introduced, my voice steady but with a hint of strain. Laura's smile faltered for a moment, replaced with a hint of disappointment. Or was it judgment? "Ah, nice to meet you. So you've moved on, Ben," she said lightly, though the words carried a weight. In that transitory moment, I stood at the intersection of my past and present, acutely aware of the fragile balance I was cultivating with Claire. It felt risky, a tender relationship that could not afford to crack under the scrutiny of old faces. Yet, there it was, a moment where the beauty of new beginnings was perilously close to the starkness of yesteryears. That evening, under the dusky glow of lamps in Claire's kitchen, I prepared a simple dinner. Yet, tension stirring in the air felt thick enough to cut through. It was the first time I felt a hesitance to share my past with Claire in a way that could fracture our newfound bond. Today was strange. I began cautiously, my spoon stirring the pot, not looking up. Running into Laura brought back, well, a lot of old memories. Claire remained silent for a moment. "It's hard when we're reminded of who we used to be," she replied thoughtfully. "But it sounds like you still hold on to some of that, don't you?" Her insight pierced through the brittle walls I had constructed around my feelings. "I thought those parts were gone, but perhaps they're just tangled up in the threads of who I am now," I admitted. "Sometimes I worry you see them too." Her gaze softened as she took my hand in hers. "Ben, we all have threads that have been pulled and frayed. I want you to know that I'm here to unravel them with you. These experiences make up our stories." The sincerity in her voice wrapped around my heart, slowly soothing the quivering anxiety that had begun to rise. Like a tapestry woven of fragile threads, our stories intermingled, a fragile but authentic existence inviting exploration. It was there, in that shared moment, that we promised each other that honesty would become the anchor of our relationship, a means to weather the storms of vulnerability together. With the passage of weeks, as leaves sprang forth in lush green, I found both risk and promise woven through every interaction with Claire. Each day demanded a choice: to embrace the past as integral threads of our lives, or to shy away from confronting what once was. With courage bolstered by Claire's patience, I agreed to attend a reunion of my former colleagues. It felt like a step into uncharted territory, yet the thought of facing that past alongside her lit a small spark of excitement within me. That evening, Claire and I stood at the entrance of the venue, a familiar building evoking distant memories of triumph and defeat. My heart raced with anticipation and fear, yet Claire gave my hand a gentle squeeze, igniting a warmth that wrapped around me like a seasoned embrace. As we ventured inside, laughter filled the air like soothing balm. Conversations flitted around us like butterflies. Old faces greeted me, some filled with curiosity, while others regarded me with caution. But with Claire by my side, I began to feel lighter, and slowly the pieces of my past became less daunting, reshaped by the love and companionship we had built together. Reconnecting felt more like unraveling the complexities of an old story, and with each interaction, I felt layers of guilt begin to dissolve. Introductions flowed easily as Claire blended seamlessly into the atmosphere, her humor drawing laughter and igniting conversations. As the evening wore on and I found myself surrounded by old colleagues, something unexpected happened, a collective embrace of ideals shifting and evolving. Life isn't about winning every case, I spoke, surprising even myself with the conviction in my voice. It's about the people we choose to stand beside. And for the first time in years, I'm grateful to have chosen to stand beside someone who challenges me to be better. Amidst the cheer, Claire caught my eye and smiled brightly, grounding me as fully as the roots beneath the trees surrounding the venue. Together, we explored the intertwining histories of our narratives, embracing our pasts while emboldening our futures. In that moment, I understood that redemption wasn't merely a distant promise. Rather, it was a truth we manifested in creating a life filled with authenticity. As we stepped out into the night, I grasped Claire's hand tighter, ready to weave our stories anew. No longer haunted by the ghosts of my past, I felt the air shift around us, laced with hope and possibilities, as if inviting us to pen our future chapters in the vibrant ink of love, resilience, and the beauty of truly living. Together, we turned toward the uncharted horizon, prepared to write a story worthy of the depth we so deeply craved.